Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. The next comment or question comes from Classic Arcade and Amusement Park videos. And this one is in response to Frontal Lobe for the M1. Receptor has backup utility. A mailbag I did in December 2022. And Classic Arcade writes, hello again. Actually, he did a lot of comments on quite a few videos in a very short space of time. Again, this is quite wordy, so you will excuse me. I do have to read some of these. I just can't memorise sentences. In the early 90s, when Korg M1 still reigned king of the synth market, I purchased a pre-owned Frontal Lobe for my mighty M1. This was before the days of the internet where you could easily research almost any product. I was under the impression, as you mentioned, that you could load user samples into the Frontal Lobe, as you mentioned, which is exactly why I wanted it. I could not figure out how to do this, and upon looking into it further and also talking to the dealer, it seemed that mine did not have this ability, but could only be used for putting sequences on floppy disks. So I ended up returning it. I'm not sure if it was ever just the lack of finding the details I needed, or the dealer told me what the dealer told me was incorrect. I don't remember if I had the manual or not, as this was over 30 years ago now. It is possible they sold more than one version of the device, and some could use samples, and some that didn't. I tend to think that had I had the manual and found nothing about loading samples, I don't give up easily as an IT specialist. Join the club. There is a third-party product out now for the M1 that can load multi-samples into a flash memory card. It's a number of years too late for me. I'm able to do this fine on my Modi X. Plus, I can load them onto my laptops in VSTs like Contact. One of the things that made the M1 great was the great third-party software available libraries, or third-party software libraries and third-party hardware products made for it. My favourite third-party hardware product was the InVision Plus One board that had great sample sounds on an internal ROM board. I still have both my M1s, each with $500 or professionally installed in mine. I think that's each with the $500 InVision Plus One board installed. It has almost doubled the usefulness of the M1. Sadly, these sounds were not included in Korg's M1 soft synth, nor possible to load in. I wish they would get the rights and include those samples and patches. Korg USA loved these products so much they included the boards, even though they were made by somebody else in the final years of the M1s were still being made over Korg's own EX expansion board. I did have luck in sampling some of my favourites into the Modi X using the Sample Robot software, the most efficient way to sample MIDI keyboards, unavailable on both the Nautilus or Phantom O. I seriously considered buying a Muse Receptor back in the day. Stability for live performance would have been the only valid reason for me. But in the end, as a giggy musician, it's a pretty bulky 2U rack unit that I would have to transport. And most users bring separate monitor and keyboard and mouse to their gigs, so why not just use a small portable laptop that is probably more powerful or is not going to go out of date as easily as another. But if you play stadiums and civic centres like Billy Joel, who uses receptors, stability is the key. There are a number of devices that can quickly A/B switch between laptops in the event of one crashing, now made for that purpose. Do you know what, that was Classic Arcade makes some really, really well thought out comments and questions. So I really do thank him for taking the time to actually pen those. I mean, it takes a while to read them, but you know, I don't know whether you're a he or a she, but you've put some serious thought into those comments, and I do thank you for that. Now, you know, going back to some of the key points that he's pulled out, it was not unusual in days gone by for equipment to be oversold and underdelivered. That was nothing new, and we're kind of getting back to that now, actually, where a lot of manufacturers are releasing equipment to market before that equipment really. Sorry, I just want to make sure I switch the recorder on as time here, thinking I'll be talking for 10 minutes and it's I haven't recorded it. But where was I? Yeah, so it's you know, we're getting a lot of that with a lot of these, because you can update the firmware. You can just flash the firmware onto an SD card or just download the firmware onto the synth directly from your computer. I'm finding a lot of manufacturers are releasing the synthesizer, drum machine, whatever it happens to be, before it's actually due to be released, and we are beta testing it. But I don't think it's to the same degree as we saw in the past of under-delivery, because if something under-delivered in the past, it wasn't just a case of being out the flash sheet, you were taking the keyboard to pieces and replacing chips. And I think, you know, the lack of communication channels like the internet in those days actually just allowed those perceptions. However, if you did have a product that under-delivered and the trade press got hold of that, then it will be spread across Sound on Sound and Future Music and whatever other music magazine for the technologist back in those days. Now, I have to be honest, and I've actually failed in years of looking for one to come across a Frontal Lobe product. I know they exist, and I know they come up from time to time, because I've actually been told, a friend of mine said actually he bid on one on eBay a few years back, but he didn't get it because it went above his ceiling. But I've never seen one. It doesn't mean they don't exist, it just means I've never seen one. It's interesting to note the comments you couldn't load PCM samples into the M1 memory, and I wonder if there's a requirement of the M1 to be an EX which had the expanded PCM RAM. Now, I don't know whether anybody else knows that or not. Now, I know that there is a product from Wave EX, which is a German company, and I actually have one, and I am going to do some videos on it. I just haven't got around to it. It's another one of those things that's queued up for me to do. Loading sampled sounds into the M1. So we can give that a go. Now, I actually have an expanded M1, so I can go both ways. But I did wonder whether anyone else has tried that out. And then turning to the receptor, I still believe, I've got two receptors now, I still believe the receptor is a cracking idea. But the point you make is absolutely right. You use it, the whole idea was that you used it with your computer, not instead of your computer, although it kind of was sold the other way around. And the whole idea is that the computer kind of handles sequencing, patching, audio DSP, etc., with the Muse undertaking the synthesis. Some people used it like this, others, as you say, use it as a sound in a box. I think the whole way Billy Joel used it, I think he had 4 receptors. 2 receptors that he was using and 2 receptors that his keyboard backing group or backer is the band's keyboard player was using, who would contemplate, play all the bits that Billy wasn't playing, if you like. Now, I love my receptors. Unfortunately, both of them are down in storage at the moment. I do intend to get them up and out of storage so that we can do some videos on them, because I do believe they are cracking devices. Now, the other thing I will say about receptors, and it kind of didn't come up here, but I've seen a lot of receptors recently on the market claiming to be receptor 2s, and they're not. If you look at the back of the pictures that are being posted online, somebody has tried to do upgrades to receptor 2s, and you can't upgrade a 1 to a 2. Just thought I'd mention that. receptor 2s had to be on different hardware and had different drivers. Anyway, that's just a side, but thank you very much for those comments. They were really, really interesting to read and read again as I read them out to the camera.